Okay, let me get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Gino, or Gino Chavez, which is my full name, but you can call me Gino. I wanted to talk to you folks today about ETL design techniques, something that's very dear to me, just because I have made a lot of errors in regards to this, and I feel a lot of folks make errors in regards to this because it's not something that is usually taught. Um, and it can add a lot of time to a project. So I feel that it's something I like to talk about this. So let me do a quick intro about myself. A couple of things about me. I love coffee. My friends call me a coffee snob. I'm perfectly fine with this. I really love coffee. I grew up in Costa Rica, which is a coffee country. Um, so they and we really like coffee. Another thing about me, I love traveling. Uh, Usually me and my wife, we aim for about 3 international trips a year. Um, so we try to make that as much as we can. Usually it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but that's what we're aiming for. Another thing, it's I like learning, and I like learning for fun. So if it's something I like to do, I will do it just because it's fun. One of the things I'm doing right now is learning Japanese. I like Japanese culture. I don't see myself living there, but I do like the culture, so that's why I'm learning Japanese just for fun. Another thing about me, this is my 10th anniversary with Apple in uh, late November. In November, I work in different departments throughout the years at Apple, and I'm very happy at what I do. As of right now, I'm a data engineer. Okay, so let me get started. I want to talk real quickly about the objectives of this lesson. Um, so as I mentioned, we're doing ETL design techniques. This is very high level. I'm not going to go very deep into this. It's very high level. It's just because I feel that a lot of folks don't really pay attention to what I feel is very general. So a lot of folks don't really do much in regards to this, and that's why I want to address this. Objective number one, it's gather data from customers. Uh, you have to gather what the minimum requirements are and what the final expectations are. Final expectations and minimal requirements are not the same thing. One customer might want terabytes worth of data to be put a date or their availability and a refresh time of 5 seconds. That is not realistic. So you have to figure out what are your minimum requirements and what are the customer expectations. Hopefully you meet them in the middle. It might not happen, but sometimes you can meet them in the middle. Um, some customers will be a little bit more pliable. So they will be a little bit more flexible as to what exactly they're asking for. And that's ideal, but it doesn't always happen. Um, you have to figure out what are non-negotiables, and you also have to set clear expectations. Just because they want something, it doesn't mean we can provide that. It might not be realistic. Um, Given the workload that your team might have, given what they're asking for, given your skill set, um, given the limitations of the machines, etc. There's a lot of things um, that the customer will probably ask for, and we just can't do it. So we have to set clear expectations, and we have to decide what are non-negotiables for the customer. There's some stuff they seriously want as part of the project. We need to figure out what is that, and we have to try to accommodate as much as we can for that. Topic number three, it's high level design of the project. Think what can go wrong, and it will probably go wrong. Something I have learned. It is very annoying. It's obnoxious, honestly. You obviously want your projects to go perfect. Everybody wants that, but not everything goes according to plan, and that's fine. Um, that's why we do this. That's why we plan for it. We know it might not go if it goes perfect, great. That is amazing. But there's a probability it might not happen, and we have to plan for that. And if it happens, that's fine. We have to recover. what's plan B, what's plan C. We have to keep going. We have to figure out what's next. Um, and the last one is data guidelines for the project. We have to determine what are our data guidelines for this project. Guidelines is basically what we determine it's going to be how our project is going to look like. I'm going to talk more about this as we go through. It's just mostly high level under process. So let me go to the next one. So let me get started with the first one, gather data. First thing, number one thing I tell everybody, be curious. Ask every possible question you can think of. Don't be shy about it. More questions, repeated questions, obvious questions are all valid questions. It might seem dumb, it might be silly. It's like, why would you ask this? It doesn't matter. You need to ask as many questions as you can because you need to determine what is it that you need for your project, what data you need for your project, how much you need for it, what timelines you need. You need to figure out as much you can with as little time as you have for your meeting. Your meeting might be 30 minutes, and you need to figure out as much as you can in those 30 minutes. Obviously, and this is coming back to the previous part, the next part, which is setting expectations. Um, one of the things you have to let them know is like if it's not clear, you have to set the expectation that you will go back and ask more questions about this, and they have to understand this is fine. Gathering data is very difficult because you might not speak the same language as the other person. I don't mean English or whatever language you might be speaking to them. I mean what they might talk about is not the same thing you might be talking about. I'm going to give a very quick example under our system. I used to work in a call center here at Apple, and one customer was telling me their computer wasn't working. And I assumed when they say computer, I assume like an iMac or a laptop. And they kept telling me these things that didn't make sense. It's like they're touching the screen and it's not working. And I'm like, the screen on the iMac, this thing is not a touchscreen. The laptop is not. So what are you talking about? And after I asked a lot of questions and I asked the right questions, I figured out when they were talking about laptop, they were talking about their iPad. I obviously don't think an iPad is a computer, but the customer thought of that. We were speaking the same language. He was speaking English. I was speaking English. Very clear. I was clear with him. He was clear with me. But still, we were not talking the same language because I was not asking the right questions. And that's why you have to gather data. I'm going to do a very quick exercise with you folks. I want you to write it down. I have a box, right? It's about this size, a little box. I'm going to put an imaginary object in my box. I want you to go ahead right now and write 5 questions. Write 5 questions of what's inside of the box. So you can ask me anything you want, but I want you to write down 5 questions you're going to ask me. And you can ask me those 5 questions. And after the 5th question, if you don't figure it out, obviously you lose. But if you figure it out within the 5 questions, then you win. Very simple. If it's in this box, you can wait anything. And that's it. That's the only rule. You can ask me anything you want. Go ahead and write down the questions. You can pause this so we can continue with the exercise. Okay, I assume you paused this. I assume you wrote down the 5 questions. All right, I'm assuming you're done. I want you to think of the first 3 questions you asked me. Within those 3 questions, was any of those 3 questions, what is the object? Think about it. I said you can ask me any question you want. Was any of those questions, what is the object? Your answer is no. That should have been your first question. I asked you can ask me anything, absolutely anything. If your first question wasn't what's inside of the box, then all the other questions are not. They don't matter. Sure, you can ask if it's round, you can ask if it's square, you can ask like how much it weighs and so on. But realistically, the first question you should have asked me is what's inside of the box. A lot of folks don't think about it. And I'm telling you, you can ask any question, but a lot of people are scared of asking questions. You can't be scared. You're working with data, if you're working in design, you have to ask the right questions. All right, moving on to the next one. Uh, Set expectations. This one goes in line with the first one. Um, I decided to make it its own slide, although technically the first one and this one is it's almost the same topic. Um, but I separated this one for a couple of reasons. So let's go over the slide. Once you have asked all the questions you can think of, you need to set the correct expectations with the customer. Under promise, over deliver. But do not make the breach that obvious. And what I mean by the breach that obvious. So you can under promise and over deliver. So you can promise, let me give you a very basic example. Let's say you have a child and you say, I will promise you a little car. And then for Christmas, instead of they might be expecting like a little, like a Hot Wheels little car. And then you show up with like those like $1,000 electric cars that you go around and like you play around like kid, like the big ones. That is breach of the obvious. And breach of the obvious is when there's like a big gap. So there's a big gap, and obviously you under promise and you over deliver. You can do that. I'm okay with that. Some people do it. I don't really like it. When I say under promise over deliver is, hey, I am going to try to get this project done by Thursday, but I'm probably going to give it to you on Friday. Um, and then you actually finish on Thursday. I don't know. Let's say you actually finish on Thursday. It's like, look, I finished this project on Thursday. I know I was planning to deliver on Friday, but I managed to finish it early. So here it is. And you finish the project, and again, you under promise, you over deliver. Um, the reason I don't like the big gap, and this is more of a me thing. I feel it's like you're lying to people, and I don't really like that. Some people it's like, oh wow, that's so great. It's for me, it's not that great. It's like you gave me an expectation and you basically lied to me. That's how I see it. But of course, this one is more of a personal opinion for that one. And the next one is find non-negotiables. Uh, Time. My expectation is for you to deliver this by Friday. That is a non-negotiable. I have to deliver this to executive by Monday. You have to give me this by Friday because I have to look over it the weekend. That is a non-negotiable. Objective, data quality, other stuff. Um, you have to figure out what are non-negotiables. Let's say the customer they ask you for this one feature that allows them a refresh time of 10 seconds. But I mean, realistically, that might not happen. Let's say your system's too old or something like that. You have to set your expectations. Like, look, I'm going to try my best to give you 15 seconds, and that's like really pushing it. But realistically, I might aim for 20 because that's what our system can do. This is, by the way, this is an example. Of course, you can set it up to what your scenario is, but you have to set the correct expectations. You will have a reputation. Um, People, if you don't set the correct expectations and you lie about them or you under deliver and you don't deliver in time, etc., people will not trust you. So you have to set the correct expectations. Next one I want to talk about is high level design. This is something I want everybody to, whenever you're working on a design, just write it down and keep it somewhere you can see. Whether you do it on your iPad, if you're more of an electronic person, or you put it on paper, write it down. This is for reference. This is essential. As the site says, this is essential. You need to do a high level design what you're working on. Where's the data coming from? What if it can get there? how will it be clean? What if it fails to clean? Where's the stage at? Where am I storing it? All these questions, you put them on paper, you put a little square for where's it coming from. Let's say it's coming from an API. Let's say you work for Google or something like that, and you're getting this data from an internal API. Then you put that in your little box, your API from Google, and then it's going into your stage area, or well, actually we'll go into your clean area, where you download it. Maybe you do some Python conversions, um, you remove a column, you add a column, etc. Whatever you're doing, just very high level, and then write it down and get a review, get a peer to review it. Hey, what do you think of this? This is what I think this project will look like. When you start, you should be doing this for every single project, but eventually, like smaller projects, you don't have to do it. But for every big project or medium project, you should be doing this. Write down what can go wrong, because if it can go wrong, it will probably go wrong. Next one is data guidelines. These are the guidelines that you will follow for your project, and you have to be very strict about this. Um, these are your non-negotiables, not the customers. These are your non-negotiables. If you say this will be like this, you should follow the same convention for every single part of your project. If you say you're using camel case for table names, you will use camel case for table names for every single part of your project. It's a guideline. If you don't have guidelines, you have disorganization, and disorganization leads to chaos. You don't want that. You want your project to be organized. If your data contains type 2 data, how will you handle it? Do you need to handle it? Will type 2 be given to you and you don't have to handle it? This has happened to me where I have type 2 data. It was given to me by somebody I requested, and I asked them, it's like, so I kind of noticed this data looks peculiar. Is it type 2? And they're like, yes, it is. And I asked them that moment, do I need to handle this? Or will you handle the type 2 data? Do I need to care if a new record comes in? Do I need to handle that? Where I need to change very quick explanation type 2. If you get a new record, for example, student John, you have one record of everything about student John, and you have their student ID, etc. And there's a column called taking math 300. Let's say there's a little check mark. And that record gets modified because John's taking math 300 for that semester. How do you handle that? Do you delete the record and you re-add it? That's type 1. Type 2, it's you keep the record and then you update that column. So math 300, and you put maybe like a true or yes. And then you put your starting date. So let's say this record was modified August 1st, 2023. And then you add your end of record. So maybe your end of record will be in December 31st, 9999. So people do it like that. So people put 3999 or whatever you want. Again, this is stuff you should be defining here in your data guidelines, and this should have been defined way before your project. Do I need to keep history tables? How much data do you need to keep? All these questions. All this is stuff that is, as I mentioned, these are your non-negotiables. You need to figure out what is it that you're going to, what is your project going to look like, and you have to follow the guidelines. And that's basically data guidelines. This one's very important. Some people don't, but some people don't take this seriously. I feel it's very important. You need to define what are your guidelines. You need to follow them. You need to keep them consistent throughout everything. Otherwise, it gets disorganized, it's a mess, and it just doesn't work. And this one is very important. But yeah, this is it. It's a very high level view of how it works, how how to work with a very high level ETL design technique. That's it. If you folks have any questions um, or anything any errors I made on the presentation or anything like that, you're welcome to ask me. But that's it. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.